Offers full and broad-spectrum CBD oil, extracts, and capsules which are designed to help you feel your best. Their products are sourced from the best organic hemp and natural ingredients on the market and are tested for quality, purity, and potency. They have a full range of items from health and wellness to beauty to pets. Call 725-205-9223. Visit online at zinworld.com or stop by their location at 9895 South Maryland Parkway and Silverado Ranch Parkway. Mention KSHP for 10% off in-store or use code KSHP online for 15% off.
Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Liberalism is back in style. Welcome to the evolution.
Hey, Doug, great show, man. I would encourage everybody to reach out and support Doug. This is absolutely tremendous. Doug is making a personal sacrifice that is enormous. And Doug and I have talked about this. You know, if the orange fraud, if the Nazi wannabe, the authoritarian fascist happens to win, he might turn his sights towards Doug. He probably won't because, we're just a little Las Vegas radio show. But, Doug has sacrificed tremendously for your entertainment, for your education. He puts a lot of time into this show. He provides tremendous content. Helen Thomas hit it square on the head. Come on, man. Reach into your pockets and support Doug. Give us some help. We need Doug Basham on the radio every single day of the week.
I'm back, bitches!
What if you knew Fox News was just lying to you? How could you watch when you know?
He was voted Variety Entertainer of the Year in the Excellence in the Arts Awards and is one of the highest Arbitrum, now Nielsen-rated talk radio hosts in Las Vegas. He is also a refreshing voice of logic and reason. Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Doug Basham.
Raise a little hell, raise a little hell.
I know words, I have the best words.
I love the poorly educated.
Right under the toilet.
And good morning, my fellow wokes and Republican jokes. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Doug Basham, and welcome to the Doug Basham Show right here on KSHP in Las Vegas and on social media, and to a genuine demonstration of excellence in broadcasting. The website is DougBasham.com, last name spelled B as in Bob, ASHAM as in Mary, DougBasham.com, my email, Doug@DougBasham.com. If you are new to the show, here's all you need to know. On my website, you will find links to every website associated with this show, in particular, links to all my social media sites, on 4 of which we both broadcast this show live and archive the shows. But let's simplify it down to just one. On my website, click on the YouTube link. Once there, click on the link that says live, whereupon you can either watch the show live or view the archive shows. And while you're there, if you wouldn't mind, do us a favor, will you? And click on the subscribe link. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station. If you would like to talk on the radio later, as in our second half hour, that's 702-221-SAVE, as in Save Our Democracy, which is our ultimate and only goal in each and every show we do. Lock him up. Quick programming note, folks. I've been informed that around 11:20 this morning, there's going to be like a nationwide test of the EAS, the Emergency Alert System. And apparently Justice says this is going to affect everything. Telephones, computers, laptops, and the whole kit and caboodle, huh? So what we're going to do is kind of unprecedented for us. As we get close to that time, we are going to take a break, which is kind of foreign to me because I don't take breaks. But when it's in EAS time and they're going to do that, well, it sounds like a good idea. Anyhow, that's coming up around 11:20. So if something goes weird in your house, now you know why it is. Now, normally, given what happened yesterday to QOP House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the appropriate phrase would be, "So long, Kevin, we hardly knew you." Except in this case, we did know you, Kevin. And to use another old adage, you dug your own grave. And we'll get back to Donald Trump's Kevin in a moment. But first, much bigger news in my opinion. Yesterday, we listened to the orange hemorrhoid speak after his court appearance on the first day of his financial fraud case. We heard him lie, we heard him bully, but most importantly, we heard him threaten.
But this is a disgrace, and you ought to go after this attorney general.
This is a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. He's interfering with an election, and it's a disgrace. Thank you very much.
And I said after I played that clip yesterday, you don't have to be any kind of legal expert to come to the conclusion it's probably not the best legal strategy to insult the judge who holds the future of your phony empire in his hands that are larger than yours and whose power is also larger than yours. Well, it appears Judge Arthur Engeron joined us in listening to Trump's threats. And apparently, this was the clip that perhaps provided the stepping stone to the proverbial straw that broke the judge's back.
He ruled that we lost a big part of the case because he's a Democrat club politician, and he's a disgrace to people that call themselves judges. This guy's getting away with murder, and his clerk should not be allowed to be in his ear on every single question. You take a look at what's happening with her. She hates Trump more than he does.
And get this, yesterday, on Tuesday, day 2 of the trial, during one of the breaks in the trial, Trump went on his anti-social media site and not only attacked this clerk again, he posted a photo of her with Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, revealed her name, and captioned the photo, quote, "Schumer's girlfriend, Allison R. Greenfield, is running this case against me. How disgraceful. This case should be dismissed immediately," end quote. And then the Trump campaign sent out that post in an email blast, a fundraiser, I'm sure, because, you know, grifters gotta grift. And so, when court resumed, the judge looked at Trump, who was sitting approximately 12 to 15 feet from this clerk. Judge Engeron did what we fully expect Judge Tanya Chutkan to do, not this coming Monday, but the following, Monday, October 16th. While some of us wonder why she hasn't done so yet, put a ball gag on the mouth of this heinous, unhinged, and dangerous monstrosity of a human being. An out-of-control reprobate who, on a daily basis, continues to do what he was categorically and explicitly warned to not do. Say things that could taint the jury pool, that could influence jurors, and most importantly, that could threaten and intimidate jurors. And Trump has done that every single day for the entirety of his adult life, let alone since he started facing serious legal jeopardy. So, yesterday, Judge Engeron said, quote, "This morning, one of the defendants posted to his social media account a disparaging, untrue, and personally identifying post about a member of my staff. Personal attacks on members of my court staff are unacceptable, inappropriate, and I will not tolerate them in any circumstances. Consider this statement a gag order forbidding all parties from posting, emailing, or speaking publicly about any of my staff. Failure to abide by this order will result in serious sanctions," end quote. Here's one of my favorite legal pundits, Lisa Rubin, on exactly what happened.
The examination today, or the court proceedings, really focused on a gentleman named Donald Bender. He is Donald Trump's former lead accountant at Mazars and was principally responsible for the issuance of these statements of financial condition that are at the heart of this case. But as you noted, the bigger drama was not in the Trump team's effort to discredit Donald Bender and make it seem as if it was folly for him to rely on the Trump team for information. Rather, they should have been able to rely on him as a certified public accountant. The real drama was in what happened outside the courtroom, because Trump, during a break, must have posted the social media post you were talking about earlier that then became the subject matter of the gag order. And hell hath no fury, Nicole, like a judge whose staff is messed with. I can tell you that from personal experience as a former law clerk. Judge Engoron, who normally has a Larry David-like demeanor, was suffering no fools when he talked about the fact that no one should be allowed to talk about his staff in social media posts and emails or just speaking publicly without suffering severe consequences. He was unambiguous about that.
Okay, if the judge's ire was irked to the level of hell hath no fury, why such a limited gag order? Which, in my opinion, it is. Very limited. Too limited, in my view. I mean, I'm glad the judge is protecting his staff, but there are many other people that are equally, if not more, critical for this trial, as in jurors, as in witnesses, who he needs to protect as much as his clerk. At least that's the way I see it. And we'll delve into that more after our next clip. That said, a gag order, even one I see as way too limited, is way past due. I'm not sure if the judge ordered Trump to delete the post or if he did it on his own, realizing, or someone making him realize he had gone too far. Either way, the post quickly disappeared. More on that in a bit as well. David K. Johnson, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative economics journalist and author of several books, including 2 on Donald Trump's finances, had this opinion on this particular gag order, in particular, why Trump went after this clerk. And I don't know that I can agree with what he says, but let's give it a listen.
I think it's very clear here that Donald is trying to provoke a judge in the hope that they will make an error into locking him up by going after people who are irrelevant to the circumstances before him. The clerk in this case has nothing to do with these issues. General Milley is not going to be intimidated by Donald's threats. He was a valorous infantryman, but a clerk in the court. And so I think Donald will keep probing and testing to see if some judge will remand him, will lose his cool, and somehow create an opening for Donald legally or politically.
Okay, here's what I either don't get or don't agree with. I get his point that neither the clerk nor General Milley have anything to do with the case. But I would counter with, so what? So what? If you're a potential juror or witness and you see the former president of the United States going after a 4-star general, mightn't you be thinking, Mark Milley is a brave, courageous, and battle-tested 4-star general, and Trump and his thugs are still willing to go after him, even though he has nothing to do with the trial? I do, as a juror or a witness. I wonder how hard he and his MAGA thugs will come after me and my family. So in other words, I don't see why this would be an error, as David K. Johnson said, on the judge's behalf to throw Trump in jail for threatening a clerk. In other words, one doesn't have to be attacked personally to feel intimidated or threatened. If you see how Trump goes after everybody, even if they're not, and I would say especially if they're not relevant to the case, that's enough to make you feel you could definitely be next because you are a part of the case. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and if you disagree, tell me why. Johnson also had an interesting take on how Trump ended up with a bench trial with the judge and not a jury trial, with jurors he could threaten, intimidate, and endanger.
Yeah, I think Donald's lawyers or any reasonable lawyer would think seriously about having a jury in Manhattan, given Donald's attacks on people in Manhattan. That is, this may have been a mistake by one of Trump's lawyers who've proven not to be very good, but it could also have been a deliberate strategic decision to have a bench trial.
And then later in the day, in another interview on another show, Lisa Rubin offered up some new information.
As you noted, there were a bunch of different breaks. When we first broke for lunch, Trump and his lawyers and Letitia James and her lawyers were brought back into the courtroom, and all of the media who were present were not allowed back in. That was a sealed courtroom for a private conference. That happened again later today when we were supposed to resume the trial for, as you noted, about 45 minutes. And that's when Judge Engoron retook the stand and made clear in front of everyone present, consider this statement to be a gag order, and then proceeded to say that none of the parties are permitted to talk about any member of his staff, whether publicly, over email, or over social media. As I said to our colleague Nicole Wallace earlier today, hell hath no fury like a judge whose staff has been messed with. There is no person about whom a judge is perhaps more protective than the members of his staff, aside from the jury. And given that there's no jury here to terrorize, that post about the judge's law clerk was one step way too far for Judge Arthur Engoron today.
And that's a great point. With no jury to terrorize, Trump and his violent, brain-dead MAGA cult base can focus on clerks. But my point still stands. No matter who he terrorizes, it can have the same effect on those Trump and his base have yet to terrorize, but most certainly will when they become part of the process and their identities become known. I just heard part of that emergency alert system. Folks, this is a nationwide thing. We got to do it. We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the other side and continue. Stay where you are. Hi, Doug Basham here. Join me Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon right here on KSHP AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and on major social media sites. As always, I'll tell you what your conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media isn't. You're welcome. That's Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on KSHP. Be there.
Hey listeners, get ready to be excited about traveling again. This is Jeremy Long, the Full Metal Traveler. You owe it to yourself to check out my all-new travel show called Unscaled, each and every Saturday at 2 p.m. right here on KSHP AM 1400 and the all-new 107.1 FM North Las Vegas. With each show, I'm going to be your guide to the latest travel and entertainment news in Las Vegas, across the country, and around the world. Discover new destinations, forgotten favorites, and exciting travel stories by joining me, the Full Metal Traveler, each Saturday at 2 p.m. on Unscaled right here on KSHP AM 1400 and the all-new 107.1 FM North Las Vegas.
Vegas has Italian Ice. Philly Freeze Me Italian Ice, also known as water ice, is 100% authentic Italian ice made with authentic recipes and fresh ingredients. Philly Freeze Me is also vegan. Try a single flavor or mix it up and taste test multiple flavors like watermelon and cotton candy or strawberry lemonade and mango. It can be adult friendly with alcohol-infused flavors. 2 area locations open until 8 p.m. every day. Follow Philly Freeze Me on social media at Philly Freeze Me or online at phillyfreezeme.com.
There's plenty of things to do in LA, but nothing can compare to a day at Raging Waters Los Angeles. With 60 beautifully landscaped acres of slides and attraction, family fun for everyone. Catch a gnarly wave in the Wave Go, or race for the win on the super fast Raging Racer. With more water rides than any other water park in Southern California, Raging Waters Los Angeles is recognized as the state's largest water park. For more information, visit ragingwaters.com.
Back by popular demand, the showroom at South Point presents Human Nature. Back to the sound of Motown. October 3rd to the 5th. Tickets to the box office online at southpointcasino.com or charged by phone 702-797-8055. An amazing evening, and tickets are going fast, so get yours now. Human Nature at the South Point.
Cup Buck Korean barbecue. Cup Buff Korean Barbecue in a Cup is serving up you.
Hi, Doug Basham here. Join me Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon right here on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and on major social media sites. As always, I'll tell you what your conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media isn't. You're welcome. That's Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on KSHP. Be there. And we are back, folks. If you wonder what that was all about, apparently it was a nationwide test of the emergency alert system, something that everybody had to do if your phone's messed up. Mine is. I've got my show on here, and I'm frozen like 10 minutes ago. So if weird things happen with either your phone or your computer, now you know why. Anyway, we're back. I think we got that whole sound clip in from Lisa Rubin before we took the break. Just to reiterate what I said, I thought she made a great point. With no jury to terrorize, Trump and his violent, brain-dead MAGA cult base can focus on the clerks. But my point I made earlier still stands. No matter who he terrorizes, it can have the same effect on those Trump and his base have yet to terrorize, but most certainly will when they become part of the process and their identities become known. But get this, we then learned that back on Monday, day one of the trial, Judge Engoron had warned Trump off the record against making such comments. So what does Trump do the very next day? And not only that, while court was in session, Tuesday? Exactly what he was explicitly warned to not do. This is a deranged degenerate who has no respect for the judicial system, the justice system, or even less respect and concern for those whose lives he and his MAGA thugs will endanger with his unhinged, threatening comments, either verbal or with anti-social media posts. Former Republican Congressman David Jolly, another favorite of mine, gave his take on Trump's gag order. We'll hear the most thoughtful question my gal Nicole Wallace asked, and then David's response.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get back every time I said the rule of law is under attack. David Jolly, he names names. He doesn't ever attack the rule of law. Yeah. His posts don't say rule of law and a picture of the rule of law next to a Democrat or in front of a baseball bat. He names names. And we choose not to amplify them here. It's the right thing to do. But to Tim's point, they don't need help amplifying them. And Donald Trump never apologizes when and if violence is the natural extension of the conspiracy theories he peddled. He didn't apologize for the person who believed the conspiracy theories he repeated over and over again and broke into Speaker Pelosi's house and hurt her husband with a hammer. He doesn't apologize when the shooter in New Mexico went out and shot up the homes of election workers. He didn't apologize for repeating the big lie. In fact, he repeats it. What do we do? What do the rest? It feels like Trump's behavior is now such an established pattern. We know what he's going to do. What do the rest of us do? It seems Judge Engoron gave us a good example.
That's right, Nicole. Either out of vanity or political strategy or both, one of the tools that Donald Trump reaches for is to incite violence. There's no greater example than January 6th. But we also know, as you've mentioned, the lone wolf, where he identifies a specific individual or a specific target, and then his audience, whether it's been amplified or by media or not, his audience receives that message and goes to action. And I think there are two things to address. First, Donald Trump as a defendant or as someone in a civil proceeding needs to be sanctioned, and he needs to suffer the same accountability under the law that anybody else would. Politically, he needs to be defeated. He needs to be crushed. His movement needs to be crushed politically at the ballot box, because that's what it's going to take. And I think the way to do that politically in America, in a two-party system, our politics is informed by the contrast. And John Harwood pointed out today, you have Donald Trump, the leading candidate for the White House on the Republican side, being sanctioned by a court, about to be found liable for at least $250 million. You have Kevin McCarthy losing the speakership, Republicans in chaos, and you have Joe Biden negotiating prescription drugs for seniors in the Medicare program. That contrast is how Donald Trump ultimately suffers political accountability and loses his power, if you will. Now, what has he created culturally? That's a deeper question for us to examine and study.
And I think what David was alluding to there at the end was this simple fact. Even if Trump loses next year, Trumpism ain't going anywhere. And unless he's thrown in jail, neither is Trump. And he will always be the agent of chaos trying to destroy our democracy. Back to Lisa Rubin. She was asked, what's next? We'll hear that question and Lisa's response.
Donald Trump started with this crushing blow. The judge had already decided, had already ruled on, in summary judgment, the question of fraud. So what is still at stake, and what happened today on the legal front?
So, Nicole, let's take your first question first. There are 6 more claims to decide, and although Judge Arthur Engoron already decided that Trump and his organization and the other defendants engaged in persisted and repeated fraud, intent is not a portion of the statute for which he's already been found liable. The remaining violations are essentially that he has committed repeated and persistent fraud and illegality by violating sections of New York's criminal law having to do with false financial statements, falsifying business records, and committing insurance fraud. And if you're the Attorney General, the reason you want to prove these in a court of law is because you want the full smorgasbord of relief that you've asked for in your complaint. You want to bar Donald Trump from doing business in the state of New York, whether it's by borrowing money from New York lenders or whether serving as an officer or director of a New York company. You want all of that and a bag of chips, too, and that's why they're here at trial.
A few moments ago, I brought up the fact that Trump deleted the post wherein he attacked the judge's clerk. I also said that we don't know whether the judge ordered him to or if someone told Trump to delete it. But it obviously wasn't deleted before Judge Engoron saw it. Tim O'Brien, journalist and author with 2 of his books being written about Trump, was actually sued by Trump because Tim alleged in his book, one of them, that Trump was only worth $250 million. That case was dismissed, but in discovery, Tim was able to see Trump's actual financial data. And even though he was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement, he has maintained ever since that Trump is in no way even close to as rich as he says he is. These are Tim's thoughts on Trump's gag order, in which he also mentions Trump's attack on our pillars of democracy.
A long overdue response. You know, I think looking at this is... it's just another example of how utterly thuggish, obscene, and dangerous this buffoon can be when he's left to his own devices. And he's been doing it for years. Judge Curiel in the Trump University case, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss in the Georgia voter fraud case. He shifts between people who can defend themselves and have the resources to, journalists like you and me, to average people who are innocent bystanders, because at the end of the day, he's a bully. And he doesn't really care about the consequences of his own actions. And I think, you know, we're used to Donald Trump being obscene and being a thug and being dangerous, but we shouldn't accommodate his thuggishness or his obscenities, because doing that is dangerous. And I think one of the things you're seeing now is repeated challenges of institutions and the rule of law and the court system is people saying, well, you know, he's a former president. It would be wrong to put him in jail if he violates his gag order. This has come up in the January 6th case with Judge Chutkan. She has repeatedly told him that he's trying to, you know, his public statements intimidate witnesses. They could taint the jury pool. They will pervert the legal process. And I think at the end of the day, you can only warn a defendant so many times, and then you have to take action, and you either gag him, as he was done today, or you ultimately may have to put him in jail. And I think the real test with Donald Trump is that he has to observe the same standards as everyone else, not in spite of being an ex-president, but because he's an ex-president.
Very well said, Tim O'Brien. Oh, and I asked yesterday what the over-under was on Judge Engoron receiving death threats if he hasn't already. He already has, to the extent, already, we're only on day 3 of the trial, he has to be escorted by security both from his home to the courthouse and back home again because of the threats he's received from MAGA morons. And make no mistake, they are morons. Dangerous morons, but morons nonetheless. And when I read this last night, I thought back to my comments yesterday concerning Attorney General Merrick Garland, who called for civility and kindness and listening to opposing values. Is this one of these opposing values you want us to listen to, Mr. Attorney General? We're only on day 3 of the trial, and MAGA threats are already creating security issues. Shall we take these domestic terrorists out to dinner, maybe, Mr. Attorney General? And need it be said again, these people are in a cult. Look at this photo. I found it on a right-wing MAGA cult site. For those radio listeners, it's a picture of Donald Trump sitting in court. Beside him sits Jesus Christ. No, I'm not kidding. And the caption reads, quote, "This is the most accurate court sketch of all time because nobody could have made it this far alone," end quote. The implication being Jesus is the one giving Trump the strength to withstand all the hoaxes, witch hunts, 2 impeachments, 4 indictments, 91 charges, the potential of losing his empire and house of cards, and his ability to do business. When Jesus was reached for comment, he said, quote, "Oh, hell no. I would refer you to the book of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 24. For those self-professed evangelicals who know even less about the Bible than I do, quote, "Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God," end quote. And by the way, 3 things Christ promises. He won't leave you brokenhearted, Psalm 147, verse 3. He won't reject you, John 6, verse 37. And he won't leave you nor forsake you, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 15. In other words, Jesus is
never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you, never gonna...
Now, for those who don't get the joke, or for those who do, that is the first time in my lengthy and storied radio career that I've ever rickrolled my audience. You're welcome. And by the way, you know why the gates of hell are always open? Because Jesus was born in a barn. Jesus and his 12 disciples walk into a restaurant. Jesus says, "We'd like a table for 26. And the maitre d' says, "But there's only 13 of you. And Jesus says, "Yeah, I know, but we're all going to sit on the same side." And did you know the motion picture, The Black Panther, was mentioned in the Bible? Yeah, when Jesus was able to walk on the water. Which is why Jesus didn't walk on water after the insurrection. It's a hell of a lot harder with holes in your feet. And did you hear what the Tibetan monk said when he saw the face of Jesus in a tub of margarine? "I can't believe it's not Buddha." And we all know why Jesus no longer trusts mankind. He doesn't want to get double-crossed. And of course, we all know Jesus' least favorite sport, right? Lacrosse. And there is absolutely no truth to the heinous rumor that Jesus' favorite band is 9 Inch Nails. And you know the difference between Jesus and Mexicans? Jesus doesn't have any tattoos of Mexicans. And finally, you know how Donald Trump is fat? When God created light, he asked Trump to move the hell out of the way. Proving once again that people who watch late-night comedy shows are more informed than those who patronize their right-wing propaganda hate media. Here's Stephen Colbert.
He actually reposted this. I've heard Jesus is my co-pilot, but from the looks of this, he's also a co-defendant. And I'm being told that this is actually implying that Jesus is his defense attorney, which makes sense. His mom would be so proud. And if you want to retain the services of our Lord and Savior, just check out his new ad.
Jesus and Barnes, Messiah and attorney, 800-555, Lamb of Justice.
There you go.
1-800-555, Lamb of Justice. Nice work, Stephen Colbert's staff. Earlier, I mentioned that we weren't certain if the judge ordered Trump to delete the post or did it on his own. or someone made him take it down, realizing he'd gone too far. Either way, the post quickly disappeared. And the aforementioned Tim O'Brien was asked why he thought the post was deleted. And in his answer, it kind of sounds like Tim is taking my side regarding Trump going after the clerk.
What does it say to you that he hurriedly took it down?
Well, part of it is just his sort of belief, like the way that like children, when they're corrected by their parents, they close their eyes and they pretend like it didn't happen. I didn't see it, it didn't happen. So there's part of just the inner 7-year-old of Donald Trump. The other part is he recognized right away that he was caught out being a bully. And then I think a third element is that it already had done his work. Once he puts it up, his tens of millions of followers on social are going to disseminate it. So he can he can sort of make up the excuse publicly, well, I had second thoughts and I took it down. You know, I think, you know, what's so extraordinary about this one, again, is she's a court clerk. She is relatively powerless. And we're in an era where people will come to people's homes. People will take action against anyone Donald Trump identifies as a threat to him. And he knows it. So the fact that he went ahead and did it, I think, says something very deep about who he is. And I think institutions have to rise to this moment and check him every second of the way with as much discipline and severity as possible, because we're heading down a very bad path right now in the U.S.
Great points, Tim O'Brien. Once Trump posts something, his base immediately takes note whether they act immediately or not. So it doesn't matter if the post is taken down quickly. Also, he said this is an era where people go to people's homes. He also said the clerk is powerless, and yet Trump is attacking her, like the inveterate coward he has always been. And Tim is absolutely correct. This says something very deep about who Donald Trump is, namely a self-centered egomaniac, a bloodthirsty and power-hungry dictator wannabe, and someone who simply isn't capable of giving one continental damn about how many people's lives he destroys in pursuit of his crimes and atrocities. And Tim's final point, our institutions need to rise to this moment and check him every step of the way with as much discipline as possible. In other words, lock him up before he destroys any more lives or our democracy any further than he already has. That was incredibly and eloquently articulated Tim O'Brien. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you would like to chat, that's 702-221-SAVE or SAVE. And while we're waiting for that phone board to just explode, I want you to hear Andrew Weissman, the lead prosecutor in Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. He added this to the topic of Trump's gag order, and I think Andrew's kind of agreeing with me, although he says it would be tricky.
You have all of the judges except Judge Cannon have been threatened by Donald Trump and people who respond to his words. You have the prosecutors, you have witnesses, you have Mark Milley, a war hero, being threatened. This, for I think many people, is a day that took far too long to come. The thing that I think any judge overseeing one of the 4 criminal cases that Donald Trump faces have to be incredibly concerned about is violence, and violence actually occurring. People have already been arrested for threatening the D.C. judge who oversees his D.C. case. And it's taken a lot for the judges to react because they're concerned about due process for the defendant. But that bending over backwards comes at considerable risk to all of the people in the process who are just doing their job. And so it's a difficult situation for the judges, but we're dealing with a situation that is so highly volatile, and a person who's so highly volatile, who has followers who are willing to act on his words. And we've seen that over and over again, starting with January 6th. but seeing it now. So I think it's good that this happened, but I think that we're going to see what Judge Chutkan does on October 16th when there's another motion that is to have further restrictions placed on him because he's out on bail.
This literal piece of human trash has already effed around. Now it's time for him to find out. And like Tim said, our institutions need to rise to this moment and hold him to account like any other American citizen would be, because right now he is being allowed to get away with what likely will turn out to be murder. Again. 221-7283 is the call-in number, folks. If you'd like to chat, that's 702-221-SAVE. Let's head to the phones and we'll talk to Bob. Bob, you're first. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Doug, how are you?
Good, Bob. How you doing?
Good. So I still have to deal with Trump humpers on a daily basis, and I start talking stuff about them, and they actually are like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I think people are finally actually getting sick of this turd, you know?
Well,
And,
hopefully. I mean, if they're not willing to defend him and they're taking the position that they just don't want to talk about him, yeah, I would say that's an encouraging sign.
right. And so
Maybe they're running out of defenses.
Right. Save or pay off the debt for the United States. What if someone gets charged with treason? What's the penalty?
Death.
Okay, so you make it pay-per-view, and the United States debt would be wiped out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I'd buy at least 5. I'm just
oh
saying.
hell yeah! I'd send them out as gift cards.
Right. I'd actually get cable again. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I hear
but
you.
anyways, it's depressing, and I hope Chutkan just put him in jail already. Enough's enough.
Yeah,
And if
yeah, go ahead, Bob.
and you got all these clowns with McCarthy getting kicked out, and now I just read Jim Jordan wants to be Speaker of the House.
Gee, what could possibly go wrong?
We could chip in and buy him a sport coat or something. So, anyways,
Which he
all right,
would
take it easy.
Hey, I appreciate it, Bob. Take care. Yeah,
bye-bye.
which Jordan wouldn't wear? We could buy him the nicest suit. Forget sports coat. We could buy him a suit. He wouldn't wear it. He might wear the pants, but he wears the same shirt and the same yellow tie with ketchup stains every day to work. It is disgusting. If he had a beard, there would be muffin crumbs in it. 221-7283 is a call-in number here at the station, folks. 702-221-SAVE. And Bob brings up a good point. The people he's speaking to, the Trump humpers, as he called them, are now saying, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Why not? Are you running out of defenses? Are you finally starting to realize that the hoax and witch hunt cards only go so far? And that the number of times he has played them destroys credulity? I mean, seriously. And I have to say, I've kind of noticed the same thing. The dearth of Trump humpers calling this show has diminished significantly. Back in my other show, I had more Trump callers than I did people who are on the same side of the aisle as me. And I like that because we got to argue and fight. I like to fight, especially with morons and those who aren't, the sharpest knives in the drawer. But since we started back on this news show, I mean, they have been just surprisingly silent. Every now and then they'll go on the chat on YouTube and they'll throw out insults. But do they call in and make the argument in person? No. And I don't know if it's necessarily cowardice. It might be embarrassment that they've been taken in. So I don't know. It's interesting. 221-7283 is the caller number here at the station, folks. 702-221-SAVE. Now we go to the show's official correspondent, Big Bad John. You're next. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, John.
I would like to applaud Bob. That was his name, right? The previous caller.
Yep.
Bob, bravo, sir. I think we need to get in these maggots' faces every single chance we have. They're used to living in their own little bubble, and they're used to just hearing the positive praise from the orange fraud in their echo chamber. You need to jolt them. I had an experience I've mentioned here before where I saw this fraud, this three-tooth fraud, MAGA nut, driving down a strip mall, and he had his car was littered with Trump MAGA posters and stickers and stuff, and he had a little flag he was flying out of his moonroof,
Right.
And I got in his face and said, "Hey, man, what has Trump ever done? Name one policy that Trump instituted that benefited you?" Leave me alone, comrade. Same reaction as Bob. I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone. Why are you bothering me? They can't take it, man. And democracy's at stake, and we all need to fight for democracy. We all need to fight our own little battles. And I mentioned this yesterday. Steve Schmidt, who was John McCain's campaign manager, who is Flip Parties. He's a great man. He's got character. He's no longer Republican. He became a Democrat strictly because of Trump and his fraud. Was on another man's podcast I never heard of, this other right-wing nut job. And he just got right in his face on the podcast. You can watch it on YouTube. And he just started dropping F-bombs. Like, get the F out of here. You're effing crazy. And that's what we need to do. We need to shake these maggots up. Democracy's at stake. There's going to be a fight. And let's all fight this fight in our own little way, one little maggot at a time.
Oh, I like that. Let's fight this fight in our own way, one little maggot at a time. Beautifully said, sir, which is why you are the chief correspondent for this show. I mean, you earned that title, Big Bad John. It wasn't just given to you. You earned it.
Man, your show's great, Doug.
Hey.
If you're listening to my voice right now, you need to pick up your phone and you need to text 5 people and say, "Hey, we are so lucky to frickin' have Doug Basham provide us this daily summary on a daily basis of what happened the prior day, complete with sound clips and perfect, rational insight." Pick up your phone and text your friends and say, "Listen to this show. It's awesome. And, oh, by the way, maybe send a few bucks Doug's way." Come on, man. We got to support Doug.
Hey, John, I appreciate it. You're the best.
Great show, Doug.
Hey, thank you. Take care. 221-7283 is a call-in number here at the station, folks. That's 702-221-SAVE. And Houston, did you notice I didn't interrupt him while he was talking? It's like in my head I'm saying, well, here's another intro. I mean, when someone is talking like that, it's best just to shut up and let them talk. Although that goes for everything else John says too, but especially when he's complimenting me. Don't you agree? Of course. 221-7283 is the call-in number. Well, what is this? I played a long soundbite and said we'll play it while we wait for the phone board to explode, and it hasn't exploded. It fizzled. Maybe it was the emergency alert system. Maybe people's phones aren't working. I'm going to check mine. Mine hasn't been, well, my phone's been working, but my YouTube hasn't. So I shut the phone off and restarted it. Let me check it and see if that did anything. I know this isn't very exciting, but it's crucial, folks. Okay, I'm no longer frozen. There I am, messing around on my phone. We're back in business, folks. 221-7283 is a call-in number if you want to talk. Don't ever let it be said I didn't give you the opportunity. Oh, hell no. And while we're waiting for that phone board to explode, let's go to the next big story of yesterday. Kevin McCarthy, who ran right up against the gates of hell yesterday and was summarily fired for the first time in American history that a House Speaker has been fired. And like I said earlier, he had no one to blame but himself. Democrats threw him a lifeline with regards to the spending bill, which pissed his MAGA base off, and then over the weekend, I assumed to try and win them back, McCarthy turned on Democrats. And to her credit, CBS's Margaret Brennan literally laughed at him when he did so.
I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did
Democrats were the ones who voted for this in a larger number than Republicans to keep the continuing resolution alive.
Did you watch the floor yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
90 Republicans voted against it.
Boom. You just got owned, Kevin. And stick a pin in that clip. We'll hear a follow-up shortly, more likely tomorrow. And I'll tell you, things got pretty contentious on the floor of the House before the QOP took their vote. QOP Congressman Garrett Graves took issue with Matt Jailbait Gaetz using his motion to vacate to fundraise.
Keep sending text messages saying, hey, give me money. Oh, look at that. Oh, look, give me money. I filed the motion to vacate. Using official actions to raise money. It's disgusting. It's what's disgusting about Washington. This isn't about fundraising. This is about our country. It's about our children and our grandchildren. We need to stand behind the slimmest
30 seconds.
We need to stand behind the greatest speaker in modern history that has delivered the best conservative wins for this country. I yield back.
Wow. I mean, I understand you're trying to prop up your leader in his time of duress, but really, the best speaker in modern history? Nancy Pelosi would like a word. Tell me the number of times Nancy Pelosi brought a bill to the House floor, that damn dyslexia, to the House floor that didn't pass. Nancy Pelosi knew how to whip her caucus. She knew how to count votes. Nancy Pelosi was a speaker. Kevin McCarthy, the only thing I've ever admired him for is he's the only human being I've seen who is able to walk upright, who has no spine whatsoever. And of course, Jailbait Gaetz had to defend himself.
Keep sending text messages.
The gentleman from Florida.
My colleague says we've passed the strongest border bills in history. Well, guess what? Look at the border right now. We didn't use sufficient leverage in the debt limit or in any other thing to actually get results on the border. The border is a disaster, really something I don't think you're going to be campaigning on, that you fixed the border. Second, you said you streamlined regulations. What the gentleman from Louisiana doesn't tell you is that all of the regulatory reform he was just bragging about is waivable by the stroke of a pen of someone in the Biden White House. Do you really think you got anything for that? It's a total joke. And then finally, the welfare to work that the gentleman from Louisiana said we got. The welfare programs that they said that they streamlined with their welfare to work stuff, they're actually going to grow. Because while they did work requirements, they blew out those programs with expanded eligibility. I'm real glad you guys didn't put work requirements on Medicaid. It probably would have resulted in Medicaid expansion.
Oh, horrors! And that's the last thing we want is for more poor people to have health care coverage now, isn't it? What a dick. Matt Gaetz is a certified gold-plated dick. And from there, Gaetz then had to defend using his motion to vacate to fundraise. And in so doing, of course, he had to play the patriot card. If you're with me and agree with me, you're a patriot.
I'm real glad you guys didn't put work requirements on Medicaid. It probably would have resulted in Medicaid expansion. And when it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, oh, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations. I'll be happy to fund my political operation through the work of hardworking Americans, $10 and $20 and $30 at a time, and you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
I got to tell you, even though Matt Gaetz is a certified gold-plated dick, the boy can talk. The boy can certainly talk. Not that what he has to say is worthwhile listening to necessarily, but the boy can talk. Hey, folks, I got a lot of other stuff here pertaining to Kevin McCarthy. I think we're going to have to leave it for tomorrow, unless, something earth-shattering happens today, in which case Kevin McCarthy will be relegated to the political trash bin of history in one day. Just like that was, it took 15 votes to make him speaker, only one to get rid of him. As Stephen Colbert said last night, that's progress, Kev. That's progress. Anyhow, folks, I got to run. We apologize for the EAS interruption earlier, but as I said, it was an it was a national thing, and we had no other choice. They commandeered the airwaves and cell phones and anything else you can use to communicate with. Anyhow, I am Doug Basham. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you calling. We'll do this all over again tomorrow, hopefully with you. Until then, take care. Hi, Doug Basham here.